Hello everyone, welcome to my sewing room. I'm Ann Dale, owner-operator. We're located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we welcome you to Digital Dealer Exclusives with Kimberbell. This is month 4, a charming roll-up pouch. The marketing you'll have seen looks a little bit like this. I've chosen some different colors for our samples. I'll share that with you and what that might mean to you in the instructions. First up, we're going to start with a supply list so you can see it laid out in front of you. This particular project comes in 2 different sizes. The largest size I already have made up, and we'll be making the second smaller size today. I hope you enjoy today's program. It will be fun and little bits and pieces of information along the way. I hope you enjoy this journey. So let's get started. Join me at the cutting table and we'll go through the supply list. The Kimberbell project was created in, you know what most of us knowingly love as Kimberbell Aquas. So the supply list that comes with the project is based off of the aqua. So when it's referring to different colors of thread, they're referring to ones that coordinate with that aqua fabric. Now I have used an entirely different set of colors in mine. The original sample that I've made, this is the larger size as you can see. I've used some of the Kimberbell black and whites. I love them, but they don't get often used because of course what you can see or not see is the details in the black. They don't show well in marketing, and they certainly aren't the best in video. Now this roll-up pouch features a zipper pouch here, clear vinyl zipper pouch. You can see through there. There's some lovely little pockets here to place whatever tools you need. There's 2, 4, 6, 7 little slots there. So you choose what you want in your little roll-up. So one of the other parts of the project is this gorgeous lace zipper, which is hard to see black on black, but hopefully with my hand in behind there you can see the scalloped edge. Unfortunately, they're very difficult to come by at the moment. I do have a white one here, and I also have just a gorgeous green zip. I'm not sure if the color name is on here, but I quite liked it with my choice of green fabric. And then there's a bit of ribbon that we need, and it calls for white in the supply list, but of course I thought I preferred the black with this roll-up, and I do have some white for this roll-up. Now I haven't quite decided if I am going to show this to you with the white lace zipper or the green zipper. We'll preview them later and make a decision then, I think. So in the project, you're going to need an outer fabric, zipper pocket lining, which is this one here, this lining here, and the small pockets. The other thing you might need is some project batting, which is a lightweight batting. I've chosen to use fusion fleece for mine, so we can fuse it or not fuse it depending on what our needs might be. And for the hoop, it calls for a medium cutaway stabilizer. Now medium cutaway is really easy to come by, but I thought I might test a slightly lighter one, often referred to as like a no-show mesh or poly mesh, those sorts of things. I did test that on this roll up. And what it did is, this roll up's just a little more flexible than if we had the medium, which is just a little tighter, a little harder. But it often depends on how heavy the embroidery is in the project. Most of the embroidery in this project is quite light. So I found that I was successful with the mesh stabilizer, but Kimberbell does recommend the medium cutaway. So, you know, we always like to say here, there are those of us who test and those of us who wish they had. So I have tested this one. I did find that it works okay, and I was happy with the results. So I'm going to carry on with that today. Some of the other things that we'll be happy to have along, my handy dandy stiletto, and if you know me, you know that that's always nearby. I have a lovely set of the Kimberbell tools. They're going to be quite useful today. And some Kimberbell has a line of vinyl called Sweetest Candy Clear Vinyl. It comes in just a plain clear, and it also comes in color, so you might have fun with the color. I'll flash those by you later in the program. So I think we should get ready and go to the machine and start stitching, because that is the fun part, right? Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. Just before we get into the stitching of our project month 4, the little roll up, I'd like to give you a couple tips on cutting clear vinyl. It's kind of a new thing for some of you. It's a bit awkward for some of us. And I'm just going to give you a couple little tips before we head over to the sewing machine and start stitching out. So join me at the cutting table, and I'm going to give you a couple little tips on cutting the clear vinyl. All right, here we are, cutting table, getting ready to go over to stitch out our charming roll up. I just wanted to let you in on a couple little secrets about cutting clear vinyl. Kimberbell has some beautiful clear vinyl, Sweetest Candy colored vinyl. There's also clear. This one is some really nice shades of green. They look dark, but there's different shades of green in here. So if you only see it from the front, it doesn't look very clear. It looks quite dark, but it's very soft, light colors, and it works its way to darker shades. So you can see this one's a bit darker than the one on this end. So there's the variation of color. So we have that, and Fresh Mint, Spearmint, Gummy Bear, and Hawaiian Ice is the greens. Then we have this colored vinyl, which Peach Tea, Taffy, Gumdrop, and Grape. I'll show you the variation here. So there's that really pale, and then the variations in between, and you can kind of see, you know, some nice colors there to work with, which might be fun in your projects. Then, of course, the Sweetest Candy Clear. And it comes in these easy to handle sheets. The hardest part is opening this up and sliding the vinyl out of the plastic sleeve. But once you get it out of your plastic sleeve, you then have this. And if I turn it the right way, you can hardly see it on camera at all. So, and when you put it down on your cutting board and then you add a ruler, it's very difficult to see where you're heading. So a couple things. Some leftover paper, letters, bills, chunks of newsprint can really help. You can see that just a little easier than when it was on the cutting table with all the lines. So just having that contrast. Then we needed a 4x6 piece of vinyl. This one's already been cut roughly into 4 inches, and I need a 6-inch width. And it's just actually a little easier to see under your ruler when it's on top of a piece of paper. So the pieces I cut earlier, you can see this piece sticking out here in person better than you can on camera. But just having a piece of paper under there really can help. And if you have any rulers that have a little less lines, like this end has all the angles, flip around and use this end. There's less information and it's so much easier to see the vinyl through the less busy end. So keep that in mind when you're picking your ruler. I hope that helps you when you're picking and choosing your vinyl and your fabrics and getting ready to go. Here's our 2 adorable projects. Maybe in 2024, one of your resolutions was to be a little neater, a little tidier, something. And these will certainly help you take your tools to class. Thank you again for joining me. I'll meet you at the sewing machine and we'll get this baby stitched out. I've not given you a supply list as such for this program with prescribed colors because I think that will depend highly on what colors fabric you choose and then what thread you want to coordinate with it. Currently my machine has white in it, and for the first couple steps it's going to be great. I'm going to start with a pre-wound white bobbin, my 5x7 hoop with my mesh cutaway stabilizer, and the first piece. Now the first piece, I'm going to just give you a little heads up on that. The first piece that we're stitching out is the piece that at the end of the day will live under the zipper pouch. And what you can hardly see on the camera maybe is this beautiful quilting. And there's some lovely words there. And they're words of, love and encouragement. And you might want to be able to see those. So you might want to choose a slightly more contrasting thread on that fabric if you'd like to see. I can see it when in person, but it's not so simple to see on the screens, certainly with the lights reflecting off the vinyl. But that, of course, do you want it to be subtle? Do you want it to vanish into the background? That's certainly your call. So our very first stitch out here, we're going to just make that piece. And we're starting with stitch color step number 1. It's actually just going to stitch out a simple rectangle. And it will be looking for a piece of batting next. So that batting, Kimberbell project batting, or I'm using Fusion Fleece, as I said. So we've got this placement line. I can see it easily white on white. Just gonna pull this back a little bit. And that project batting will fit over that rectangle that we just stitched. So we're just going to center that nicely over top of that stitch out. If you want to be safe and friendly, I'm going to put a piece of tape at the bottom here and another piece of tape at the top here. They were repurposed from another project, so there's some little threads caught there. They're not going to interfere. If we happen to stitch through that tape, it will easily trim out. Okay, so stitch color number 2, base that batting in place for us. Just gonna slip in, remove the tape, it's done its job. Now on the lower one, we stitched into it a wee bit, but that's okay. It is designed to tear, so it'll easily pull out of that stitching. What it doesn't want to pull easy on is the batting, actually. And there we go. So, all gone. Just with a simple squish and pull. Now we'll need to trim away the edge of that batting. I've grabbed my Kimberbell applique scissors, and I am just going to keeping my flat hoop and on a firm surface. Trim away all that excess batting outside of that square. The hardest thing is keeping it in camera. You won't have to worry about that at home. Alrighty, so there we go. Now, our next placement is the lining fabric. All right, so for my lining, I've chosen to use this lovely green and white polka dot fabric. Just going to center it over the batting. Once I'm happy with that placement, I will put a little piece of tape up on the top there. And another at the bottom, just to keep that from walking around. And color step number 3 is a box. Okay, so that little rectangle that just went down, it's called a tack down line, so that's tacked the lining fabric down for us. We've completely cleared the tape both ends, so I don't have to worry about removing it out of the stitching. We can remove it out of the hoop. Now this is where a decision comes in. The lovely words that we have as quilting, imagine, compose, plan, all these inspiring words. So do I want to see them or do I not want to see them? And if I want to see them, what color am I going to do them in? I'm going to take maybe a little bit of inspiration from the plaid fabric. There's, at least 3 different greens in here. Some that are the same shade as the green background here. One's slightly lighter, and there's another darker one. So I think because it was so subtle in the black one that I am going to find, I think, a darker green that I feel blends but should show in that quilting that we're about to do. So this is why I haven't given you a thread supply list for this project, because it will be dependent on fabric choice. So I think that will show up. There, of course, is a zipper in the way, and then when we fill the pocket, no one's going to be able to see them. But for the moment, I'm going with the idea that I want them to show, at least for the moment. So I've chosen a slightly darker green than this background, and step color number 4 is the quilting. Sorry, I jumped ahead there. Stitch color number 4 is the tack down line there, and the line before that was the placement line. which I completely jumped. But you follow the instructions closer than I can, and you'll be correct. So here we go. Step color number 5 is the written quilting. All right, so this initial piece here has been completed. It's just 5 stitch outs. Join me at the cutting table and I'll show you what's next. Our table. Now, before I get too far, Kimberbell would like us to mark this. And it's going to be a really good idea. So I just have a water-soluble marker with me. You could use chalk, whatever you have handy. You just need to recognize the side here. And we're just going to put an R here. It's just keeping the right edge of the fabric in mind. Then we'll take that out of the hoop. Set that there. And then we're going to trim the right edge. So that feels a little counterintuitive, but we're actually going to remove the right edge. So the one that we marked is the one that we're going to remove. And that fabric tack down line that we stitched in there earlier, that's your guideline. So I'm just going to get my ruler right on top of that. Then I'll grab my rotary cutter and I'm going to remove that completely. And then we're just going to remove the stabilizer. Trim it even with the fabric. Use your rotary cutter, you can use your scissors. Whatever you were most confident using. There we go. So. Now that's not a... Perhaps it's easy to see on camera from a distance, but you can see the writing now. And I think I like that green thread that I chose. All right, so that piece is complete for the moment. Now we're going to have a little bit of prep. So the small pockets, I've chosen to use the plaid as my small pocket. So we need to press the small pocket. In the finished item, there's a folded edge on the top. Let me remind you. So there was a directional stripe in my completed one and in Kimberbell's. And if you cut it directionally in this direction, then you would know which way to fold it. And then for this plaid that I've chosen, we're just going to fold that in half. So we're just going to fold that in half here. And we'll give that a little press here. I have a little press mat here. And I have a new studio iron, because who doesn't want a coral colored iron? So, just gonna give that a quick press from both sides. And I'm going to just let it sit for a second so the crease folds in nicely. Set that to the side for a second to cool. Then we're going to need another piece of stabilizer. Sure that that's nice and flat. Again, I'm using the mesh stabilizer. There we go. Now, while I'm here and working on the ironing bit, I just want to show you a little tip. So I have this one piece of fabric that's coming up later, and you can see there's kind of a weird little thing happening there. It got creased while I was waiting to make my projects. I guess I put it down funny. So I've got this really weird crease, and it's not really happy wanting to come out. There's a glorious product out there that doesn't add starch or stiffness called Flatter. It's made by a Canadian company. Some of you may have heard of Soak Wash. Soap company makes Flatter. Now this relaxes the fiber without adding bulk or starch or stiffness. Sometimes that's a fabulous thing to have, and other times it is not your friend. So it's hard to see on camera, but this little there's a flashlight, a headlight on my iron, so that may help some of us whose vision is changing. So I just dampened that with a little bit of the Flatter, and then just ironed it dry. And what's happening there is now that crease is gone, and there was a little one up here, completely gone. So again, that's Flatter. And if you like to keep things like that near your ironing board, we have this fabulous little holder, and so it clamps onto the side of your ironing board or your table, and then it will hold that right there for you. I love that. Of course, where the edge of our table is, you can't see it. Okay, join me at the machine. Alrighty, so that was part A. We need to go load in part B. Different section of the roll-up. Okay. Now there's a couple steps here. Got my hoop on, and then there's the first placement line. I still have green in from the earlier stitch out, and given that we're going to use green fabric for the bit, I'm going to go ahead with the green stitch out. It might be a little easier for you to see on camera. Color step number 1 is the placement line, so we know exactly where to put our batting. I'll just center our batting over top of that square, and a couple pieces of tape to make sure nothing wiggles or shifts while we're stitching that. I'm not sure if it's visible on camera, but I can see that green line through the batting, so I know that I've got a good centering happening there. So step color number 2 is the tack down line. You can certainly see that green on the white. So after we have that tack down line in place, just going to grab my applique scissors here, and we're just going to trim the excess batting away. Keeping it flat. Don't trim in the air or on your leg. Best when you're trimming that you keep the hoop flat and stable. There we go. Now, color step number 3. This line is just going to tell us where to put the fabric next. That was the one I jumped a little on the last. Okay, so now that's the placement line for the lining. Just going to center that nicely. A little bit of tape. You can feel the ridge of the batting through there, so it's an easy way to find out if you're centered in a lovely fashion. That felt pretty good. The tape will hold it in place. So color step number 4. We have the same dilemma. Color choice now. What color? Just let you know that it's a little hard to see here. But if I tip it just right, you can see sort of these little branches. That's the quilting pattern. It's quite sweet. So maybe you want to think about that. But for the moment, step color number 4, let's do that. That is the tack down line. So for that tack down line, I used the green I had been using earlier, which was a nice test. So I can just see now whether I like that green, if I'm going to enjoy that as a quilting. I'm not sure I like it. So, I'm going to bring in a couple greens that I have here from other parts and projects. Let's see which one I like. I think I'm going to go ahead with the one that I have in there. It shows enough, but not too much. So step color number 5 is the quilting of that pretty little branch pattern. Okay, so color step number 6, the fun little quilting pattern. Now the next part is the words here. This lettering in my head is micro lettering. Oftentimes it's helpful to have the same color in the bobbin as you have on top. Sometimes a strip of water-soluble topping is helpful. But originally I thought I was going to do this in dark gray, and then once it started stitching out, I knew I couldn't read it at all, and I thought I really liked it. She lived the life she imagined. So I stopped stitching it in gray, went back, redid everything, set it up, and stitched it in white so that it actually showed quite nice and clear. And that's what I think I'm going to do on this project. I think I'm going to switch out that green. I have white in the bobbin. I'm going to have white on top. I think I'm going to have a softer white, which is color number 3 actually, in the realm of the whites that I use often and like quite a bit. A white number 15 is lovely, but it's a bit brighter white. So I'm going to use color number 3, which is softer and will kind of not be too stark against that green, but it will show nicely. You'll be able to read. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of topping, and I'm going to just tape that over the general area where that lettering is going to appear. Okay, so that was color step number 6. And in the larger roll up, there was enough room for that to come as a single line. The smaller roll up, it's a 2 line. Now then, I'm going to just reach in here and gently pull towards the lettering. Which tends to remove most of the excess. And I remove the bits of tape. And these little teeny bits that are still showing, we'll take them out later. Now the next color stitch out is number 7. And number 7 is going to just stitch out a couple little tiny placement lines. And having them in bright white is going to be helpful. So that was just a couple teeny little stitches, top and bottom here, just so we can see where this pocket is going to go. And we're just going to line up the top of the fold there. We're going to just center that. Once you're happy with the placement, a couple pieces of tape will be a great idea. You don't want that to shift out of a line while you're working on it. Okay. So I think I am going to leave the white in there. There's an abundance of white in this print. So the next stitch out, step color number 9, it's going to do a pocket divider. I think I'm good with the white thread. I'm going to leave that in there. Okay, so color step number 10 is going to add in more pocket dividers. So if you want 2 large pockets, skip to the next step, which is would be 11. If you have little tiny smaller things that you think might go in your roll up, then you would perhaps leave go ahead with step color number 10, which is the smaller pockets. I'm going to go ahead and stitch out all the pockets. Now, if you'd like 1 large pocket and 2 small, you can stop stitching now. As you can see, I went for all the pockets. I'm going to remove the tape for the next stitch out, which is color step number 11. And this one is a placement line, and seeing it in white would be helpful. Okay, so we now can see that white line, which is the placement line. Now, we're going to place the zipper pocket vinyl. A little hard to see on camera, there's just a little bit of shine there. The first one is going in, we're going to line it right up on that line, centered top to bottom. Put a couple pieces of tape there, probably on the other side, top and bottom if you like, side to side, wherever it's going to hold the vinyl in your best estimation. Okay. Now, that piece of fabric that we made way long time ago, remember that one? The trimmed edge here is going to go face up on that exact same line. And we'll line up the stitching, top and bottom, on the stitching that we can see under there. And we're going to probably have just a piece of tape or 2 there as well to make sure that it doesn't shift. And I think separate tape than what's being used to hold down the vinyl. All right, so here's a piece of tape on our other end to help keep that piece of fabric in place. If necessary, you could tape on this end to be stitched and remove it after the stitching's been done. Okay, color step number 12. I think I'm going to leave my white top and bottom, and we're going to stitch across here, which is going to form that seam. Okay, so the directions are asking us now to come in and trim all of this close to that placement line that we had earlier. So not the stitching line, just the placement line, which gives us roughly a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to slip in here. And essentially we're just evening things up to that piece that we just stitched. Just up against that line from earlier. There we go. A little bit thicker there. All right, so now the tricky bit here, we're gonna do some cutting on the stabilizer, and I think that'll be best achieved at the cutting table. So meet me there. This is counterintuitive for most people. We're going to cut through the stabilizer all the way along this line. and you're going to extend past 1/2 inch on each side, which is essentially right to the hoop edges. And then you're going to also snip only the stabilizer, but up 1/4 inch. So that'll be underneath all of this. You'll slip up here and split that 1/4 inch. So you can use your rotary cutter. I find a smaller cutter is fine for this. So we're just following that line. You can see, got that little slit there. And if we need to get in to do that final 1/2 inch all the way to the hoop, small pair of scissors here is your friend. And then we're going to go up 1/4 inch. So lift up your fabric and you're going to slip in there. Just 1/4 inch snip. There we go. Now, this is where some of the fun comes in. Grab your tape. It's your best friend for the next couple steps. So from the front of the hoop here, we're going to take the flap that we just had, stitched in place, and we're going to very gently push it through for the next step. Okay, so we've got that flipped through. Then we're going to flip this over, and we're very carefully going to flip it out of the way. I grab some of the tapes that we had earlier. We're going to put that in place here. Don't press really hard from the back of the hoop. Flip over where the tape is and then press firmly here. You don't want to bust up the placement of the previous pieces. You can align some of this other tape in other places. I'm going to trim that twisted bit off. The hoop is under here, so you could press hard here because the hoop itself is going to keep that from distorting. Then I think maybe a little bit up here. Just make sure that nothing sticky is towards the bottom of the embroidery machine. It can get caught and cause no end of trouble. It's terribly sorry. You know, happens to everyone. I meant to leave the vinyl over there. We just want the lining. Just gonna rewind that a little bit, and we're gonna pull that vinyl free. All the rules still apply. I'm gonna take this out of the way. We're only gonna press on it from the front, and then we're gonna sneak that vinyl back out and lay it on the front. There we go. So, seems a little weird. It's a bit risky. Okay, so on the front of the hoop now, we've got the vinyl. We want to make sure that that doesn't wiggle away or flip. Anything else exciting? Just going to grab a new fresh piece of tape here. And I'm going to tape that vinyl down. There we go. Okay, now meet me back at the machine. We're going to work on the zipper pocket here. And it's going to just do a bit of a tack down line. If this makes you really nervous, turn your speed down. Okay, so we have that tacked in place. And we're going to remove the hoop from the machine. And we're going to trim the stabilizer out of the pocket area here. So flipping to the back, carefully going to slip our scissors in there and remove the stabilizer. So try hard not to cut into that stitching. Sorry, it's very small space here to see. Move it around the best I can for you. Just gonna carefully come close to that stitch line. Release to both sides. Just gonna slip in here. And remove the stabilizer from that pocket. Looks like there's nothing there, but the vinyl's still there. So color step number 14. This is where we're gonna stitch a placement line for the zipper. Now, I think we'll use maybe the white lace zipper. So I'm going to go ahead and put that placement line in white. So now we're going to head over to the cutting table and we're going to cut that little box out there. Okay, so you can see we've got 2 lines stitched there. If you have a smaller ruler, I have a smaller 6x12, it will fit in the hoop here. If you have a small cutter, or there's another one even smaller than this, I would recommend that. So I'm just going to take my ruler and gently drop it next to that stitching line. So there, we are going to cut the stitches off. So that might help you figure out where you want to place everything. So I've just kind of have the ruler tipped gently into my hoop. And I'm going to start in the middle, towards the middle a little bit. And then I'm going to stop well before the other end. So I think I got right through that stitching. Yeah. And I'm going to come at it from this side. Just going to go just past the thread. Start in towards the middle a little bit and then stop before you get to the end. Because what we can do now for the you can see that I've got that in there. I'm just gonna snip up to there. And I'm gonna just snip to the corner down here. A little more control with the scissors than with the rotary cutter. I freed that strip up. You can see I caught the stitches on it. So I just right next to it, slip those off. Okay, so now there's a lovely little hole there. All feels a bit scary. Don't let it scare you. Okay, so now's where I got to make a really big decision here. White lace zipper or your typical green zip. I don't really know. This is going to be underneath there. That's what's going to flip back under the pocket later. I mean, the lace does look cute with those polka dots. All right, I guess I'm going with this one. Okay, so the really important thing here is placement and tape, as in sticky tape. So we're going to take the zipper here, and we're going to place the zipper right side up, centered over the hole here in the vinyl. And then we're going to tape it where we want it. And we're going to want the zipper head to our left or at the top of the roll up. You can sort of feel the hole when you put the zipper on there. You're going to want to center the zipper. We're not going to bring the metal tie off into the hoop, nor the lovely, beautiful metal zipper head there. So what we're going to do is a few pieces of tape. I'm going to try to center the zipper. And I'll just grab a couple small pieces of tape to start. And I am going to try to center the zipper. Just going to use this one as sort of a quick baste. I'm going to flip over and just see how close I am. I can see the teeth in the hole, and if they're pretty centered here, or if I need to adjust a wee bit, I feel like I needed to just shift that a little bit. Just checking the teeth are in the middle of that hole. Okay, so once you're comfortable with that, then we're going to go and make sure just going to flip this back, make sure that the teeth are centered in that hole, and then I'm just going to tape from the one side. Just going to lift that a little bit, make sure that I'm still centered there. Now you tape as much as you think you need to make sure that this is not going to wiggle away while you're stitching it. Once you've stitched through vinyl, the holes are forever. Just double checking. Going to take that in place there. Look straight. One last check from the back. Pretty good. Kimberbell's instructions taped it a little bit different than I did. You can tape as much or as little as you think you need. I just don't want it to jump out of the hoop or get caught. Okay, got her in there. Back to the machine. Color step number 15. And of course you might like a color that's going to blend into your zipper. I have that white on my machine from earlier. I think I'm going to just leave that in there. Now, this again, I'm going to sneak into my machine here and I'm going to slow it way down. Okay, so I'm going to put my speed back up on my machine to where it normally sits. But doing something a little bit more delicate like that, I like to have the machine slowed down just a wee bit. As you have the ability to get in there and stop things if you see potential for disaster looming. So now very carefully, I'm going to go in, remove all the tape off of that zipper. The little micro tip tweezers are your friend in tight spaces, certainly. Just going to get in here and use them to pick up and grab that tape. I'm going to hold the zipper down with my other hand. Okay, done like dinner. So we've removed the tape off the zipper. Now we're going to remove the hoop from the machine and flip it over. And we're going to remove all that tape from earlier. It served us well, but it's time to go. All right. So I think I've got that cleared away. Perfect. Now the zipper pocket here, we're just going to flip it. I'm just going to flip it down over the zipper. Then we'll want to tape these ends in place so that they don't jump on us. Just going to get a nice piece of tape across the end there. Make sure that doesn't jump on us. Okay, so our next stitch out, I'm leaving the white in for the finishing steps here. I think that's quite adorable. And I'm going to do color step number 16, which is the pocket lining tack down. So just make sure everything on front looks good to go here. Because remember, once you put a hole in the vinyl, it's there forever. Let's just slip this off. I'm going to flip around to the back here and remove that tape that we just put in there for the final stages. It's not necessary. Perfect. Everything's still where it belongs. Now, color step number 17 is just going to give us a little mark where we want to put the ribbon in. Okay, so if you can't see it, or it's a bit difficult to see, you could go in and put another color in and stitch it out there. I can see clear enough in the room here. It's not visible on camera. Okay, so now I've grabbed that ribbon from earlier, I've folded it in half, and let's give myself a finger press. This ribbon I'm using is the same both sides as grosgrain ribbon. It's quite lovely. We're going to put that into the hoop now. And this halfway point here, if you want to make sure that it stays one on top of each other, I'm just going to give you a little tip. Remember that stick glue that I had earlier? I like it. It's blue. So we're going to see exactly where I put it. It will dry clear and it will wash out. So, but now I'm going to fold that ribbon back on itself at that halfway mark, keeping the edges even. This makes it a single piece and less likely to slide while we're working on it. So we're going to flip that over. We're going to put it on the mark that we just made. We're going to grab ourselves a little bit of tape. And we're going to tape that end in. So we're going to extend that out 1/4 inch beyond the final stitching line there. We can tape on both sides of it so it doesn't get caught, it doesn't run away. We're also going to stitch that down. Color step number 18. It's just going to tack the end of the ribbon down for us. Now we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do here. We're going to open that zipper. We're going to remove the tape that was holding the ribbon in place. Let's put that up on camera. So I've removed the tape that was on that ribbon. I'm going to open the zipper about halfway. Now, Kimberbell has us go ahead and tape the ribbons out of the way so they don't get sewn down. But I'm going to use my pocket. I'm just going to take all that ribbon tail and I'm going to tuck it in that pocket. May as well start working for me now. Okay, so just tuck those away in there so they won't accidentally get stitched in elsewhere. Making sure my zipper's at least halfway open so that nothing metal is near the final stitching lines is what we're trying to accomplish there. Okay, now we had one last piece of fabric. A fabric that I had earlier that I removed the wrinkles out of with that fabulous flatter. This is the back. So we're going to grab this. We're going to place it in the hoop over top of everything. We're going to center it on those stitch lines from previous. I'm going to repurpose some of that tape to hold that in place for me. Center it around on all all sides here. Top, bottom, left, right. Now there's a lot of lumps and bumps here. I may actually just head back in and turn my machine down. Yeah, I've got enough fabric. Top, bottom, left, right. If you're worried about the lumps and bumps, do turn your embroidery unit down. Through the magic of television, this won't be so painful to watch. And at home, I'm telling you, if something goes wrong, you'll be grateful that you were going slowly. All right, so thus completes our stitch outs. Meet me over at the cutting table. Well, here we are. Everything's stitched out. We're going to take our project out of the hoop. One thing that might help you before you get stitching the final stitch out, have a look at the zipper. This, when it's in the hoop, is on this side. You might want to put a piece of tape over top of that so they don't get caught and pull open. Mine didn't, but if it makes you a little nervous, you might want to put a little bit of tape over those just to keep them together as the machine's going over that. You might find that helpful. Okay, so this zipper tape, you can cut through it with scissors. You can actually cut through it with a rotary cutter. I tend to use a big pair of sharp scissors or a larger rotary cutter. The directions call for trimming this out at 1/4 inch. I will leave the opening down here a little longer, maybe almost 1/2 inch. You'll see where it's not stitched here. That's our turning hole. It's a nice large turning hole, but I also find that it might be 1/4 inch might not be enough fabric there for me. Just knowing how things turn. I'm going to remove the tape that's close to the seam. This tape here, I don't want that in the final seam allowance either, so I'm just going to slip in there, remove it. I think it's going to be good. It's there. I don't see any others. Okay, so I am going to use my rotary cutter and my ruler, and I'm actually going to use a 3/8 seam allowance, not a 1/4 inch. This just makes me happier, and I'll show you why in the next step. There we go. You see how easy that was to cut through that zipper tape. I've never really felt that it damages my scissors. So a slim 3/8 is what I'm cutting off for seam allowance here. This is the sewn end, so again I'm going to leave that at about a 3/8 on the skinny side. Just go slowly, gently. Now, remember I said I might go at a 1/2 inch here? The other thing is you can see where the finished edge and the lip is here. And sometimes it's nice to fold that back on what will be that seam line, and you can either just give it a little finger press like I'm doing here. You could take it over to the iron and give it a little press back there. It just gives us a line to work from. And that piece is almost a 1/2 inch anyway. I'm going to give this just a 1/2 inch on the end where the opening is. You can trim it down a little bit later if you like. And sometimes here where it's stitched, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but there's a corner stitched in here. You can actually, maybe with the scissors, I might go in to that 3/8 that I was talking about earlier and just give that a bit of a taper there. There's just a little more in that opening for when we sew it closed later. So I'm going to reach all the way in here with my left thumb. I'm right hand dominant, so that's my non-dominant hand. I'm going to put my thumb all the way into this corner in that position. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that seam allowance and fold it under itself. I'm going to take this seam allowance, fold it under itself. It's kind of hard because there's vinyl there. It's a bit tough. But what I've done here is I've made this perfect little fold. The corner already exists on the side here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer that corner off of my thumb onto my finger. So, and then I'm going to use my finger to push it in. I'm going to do the exact same on this corner. Just my thumb in there, just to brace. So I'm pinching the corner. I'm going to fold that corner back there. I'm going to fold that corner back there. Now, if this is really difficult for you in your fingers, what I would recommend that you do is peel the fabric back, and it's really hard to see on camera, but I've got the clear vinyl there, and this is the only corner I would trim like the directions across there. And so this is a great way for you guys to try 2 different corners. So I'm going to fold that, I'm going to fold that, and with that plastic missing out of that corner, it's a little easier. So I'm going to turn that. Then I'm going to go here, and they're really teeny little corners here, but I'm going to attempt to do the same thing. I'm going to get my thumb in there. I'm going to fold that seam allowance down. I'm going to fold that seam allowance down, transfer from my thumb to my finger. And if you're having a hard time with that transferring that I do, I like to do it the same way from the same side on all the corners. So basically you can see I've just only barely shoved my thumb in there. Fold, fold, pinch, turn. And now I will proceed to just gently and carefully push the rest of it through. Beautiful. Yeah, so it's the cutest little roll up ever. I'll take that ribbon out of the pocket. I'm going to zip my pocket up. Now I can see a stitch line here. Just going to fold that in. That finger press that I did earlier, I'm going to fold that in on that. And I might grab a couple of pins. Not sure where my teeny pins are. That's what I would prefer for this. But you know, I have what I have in the room with me now. Okay, so I'm going to fold that back on that finger press, and I'm just going to put a couple pins in that side just to hold that for a minute. With these large pins, it's only going to take 2. But that's that final edge there. Then I'm going to take this, fold it back on the edge I can see there. If you're having a hard time folding that back and it becomes problematic for you, what I would go in and do is go and remove the stabilizer out of the seam allowance. It's not too much right now to roll and turn, so I'm just going to roll and turn that on just on that line. Just to hold that for a second. And I'm just going to tuck and turn, meet these here together. And just going to pin for sewing. There we go. Get those lined up the way that you'd like to see them. And then I'm going to pin that way. Whoops. I lost my turn there. But no worries. I'm going to do my best on this half. Fold those under. You could press them. And I'm going to pin through this half this way. Now, a handy dandy stiletto. You can see that maybe this corner's a little bit rounded. It's not quite as pointy as this one. Even this one has a little bit of a round. I'm just going to take my stiletto, not poking into the vinyl that's on top there, but just on the fabric side here. I'm just going to reach in the seam allowance there and just kind of lift it out a bit. So I'm actually poking the stiletto inside and then prying that up. Hopefully that makes sense. And trying not to pierce the vinyl, just only working with the fabric. I'm just encouraging that corner up a little bit. Now what I did at home, just to give this a little bit of flatness, I top stitched from here around here so that I could close the hole, which is over here, and not stitch through the vinyl again, because every stitch you take through that I feel weakens it. So that's been stitched sturdily enough in the hoop. Look. Let's put something in that pocket so you can really see where it sits. But I only stitched here because I needed to get this closed. And I'm a fan of hand stitching, but if I don't have to, I don't have to. So I just did a edge stitch in black all the way around here, which actually closed that hole nicely for me. And then I didn't have to pull out a needle and a thread, and some of you might appreciate that. So I may go ahead and do that here. But before that, what I did was I actually put this down and I put something heavy on it to press the vinyl, because you don't want to take the iron to the clear vinyl. It will turn it milky white if you hit it with the iron. I mean, if you want to test it, you can use your piece that you pulled out, cut out, and just give it a little hit with the iron. It will either melt or it will turn milky white, and not exactly what you want for this lovely clear pocket we've got built here. Now, just for reference, this is the larger and this is the smaller. This is a 5x7 variation. So a good portion of machines have 5x7 hoops. If you have only a 4x4 hoop, this is not the project for you. The rest of us who have an 8x12 hoop or larger can make the larger size underneath here. But this is adorable. If you had a lid for your stiletto and your seam rippers and pens, I think that you could get them in there. Oh, I can just get my stiletto in there. Maybe you want to use, kept one of those big pockets. You know, it'll stick out, but if it had a safety lid, it would be fine. And it's just going to hold and roll up. So even if you had a series of your marking pens in here, when this got rolled up, they would stick out, but they would be held solid. And maybe you could put a few packs of needles in there, your thimble in there, or a few spools, small spools of thread here for stitching. And there you have it. I'm going to top stitch here, here, and here. And I'll have to set the machine up for sewing. So if you give me a minute, I'll meet you back over there and I'll top stitch this for you. And my recommendation, people, is from here to here. And that's what I did on here. It seems to work nicely. And then I didn't pierce through my vinyl yet again. All right, let me flip my machine and I'll meet you over there. Okay, welcome back to the sewing machine. I'm going to go ahead and set my machine up for sewing. Put the sewing foot back on. Same thread, top and bottom, just a white. And I wanted to let you know that I took my own advice and I went and sewed this up just a little further than the embroidery unit allowed. The embroidery unit only turned it like a 1/4 inch, and I just feel that a 1/2 inch or so was a little friendlier. And maybe a little close-up of me with this corner. It's pretty good. It's pretty pointy. But if it's not, you take the stiletto, just poke it into that seam allowance, and just gently lift. We're not plucking because you're going to pull some thread out of there. Maybe even tear a hole in the fabric. And then book pressing your vinyl is your friend, because you don't want to put an iron to it. It will not like it. So here we go. Just going to use straight stitch, 2.5 length, nothing fancy. And I'm just going to sew on the bitter edge. Oh, I wonder if I should switch to green. I'm going with white. It'll allow you to see what I'm up to. I'm going to move my needle to the right here. I'm not going to stitch on the vinyl, only on the fabric. So a wee tiny back stitch at the beginning. And my stiletto is going to be my friend here as well. If I don't like how this is folded over here, I will sometimes push with my stiletto. Right now it's quite nice and I'm okay with it. When you're doing an edge stitch like this, it is best to take your time, put it in once. You don't want to have to pick this out. Just coming up on the corner. I don't want to overshoot. Pivot. And then the stiletto is really good too, managing this hole. And I've just got 2 pins in here because too many pins sometimes creates its own kerfuffle. If this fabric isn't flat underneath, I can use the stiletto to just encourage it along. Sometimes turning corners with a little bump like that, you might have to get in with the stiletto and just encourage the fabric to keep moving. Not stitching into the stiletto by any means. And as you take the pins out, your stiletto can double in places where your fingers don't fit as a temporary guide and pin. So as you get close to your pins, take them out. Now the corners are a bit bulky, but they're not as bulky as they could be because that corner was pre-folded and flattened in there. And it's quite a bit more level than if you get in there with a stick and poke. Because what normally happens there is you end up poking all the spare fabric up into the hole. So this doesn't want to move. On the brother foot here, I'm going to tip the toe forward so it's flat. There's a little black button in the back. And it's a leveler foot, and it can really help in these corners. And I've got my stiletto poked into that fabric a little bit, and I'm just using it to encourage the fabric to keep moving. And now there's the vinyl and the seam allowance and everything there. I'm just going to kind of press that down with my stiletto, and I'm just going to sew gently up to it but not into it. And small back tack there. And cut the thread. So hopefully in the camera you'll be able to see that little top stitching all the way around, just on the very edge, which is caught and closed that hole. You can maybe see a little easier here on the back. And I didn't go over the vinyl. I just went around this end in a lovely U shape, but nowhere near the vinyl on the front. Just don't think we should stitch through it more than we had to. And then I'm just going to trim the tails from my top stitching, tidy it up, and except for a little bit of topping, that stabilizer that I put in to make the letters stitch a bit better. Just going to remove that with those great micro tweezers. You just sneak them into there and pull this out. If there's some in there that you just can't seem to get out, it erases nicely with a wet Q-tip. Never forget that. Water-soluble stabilizers can be removed quite easily with water. All right, all finished. Cute as a dang button. Oh, I hope you enjoyed that project. I sure did. I'll see you next time for month 5. Well, what did you think? Got our projects, got them finished. They were fun, fast. If you start these now, you'll have Christmas gifts much sooner than Christmas. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us, and do hope you enjoy the Kimberbell Digital Dealer exclusive series. It isn't too late to join up for the whole year, and I just wanted to say please do just give us a little like or subscribe, push the buttons, show us some love, make comments, ask questions. If you have class-related questions, please email us. Our email is education@mysewingroom.ca, and we'd be very happy to answer those questions for you, get you back on the straight and narrow. If you comment on the videos, we're pretty swift at answering those as well. So leave a comment. Love the project. What color did you make? Who you making it for? Anything. Jeez, leave us a great comment. Leave us a question. And if you want to reach out, we'd love to hear from you. We'll see you soon.